Hi, I'm Ksenia, and today we're going to look at the chart of Eckhart Tolle. Now, I hope I'm saying that right. There's a few different pronunciations out there, but Eckhart Tolle is one of the foremost spiritual leaders of our day and age. He has written books, he's run retreats, he's on YouTube, all over YouTube. There's lots of videos of him speaking and talking to people. And if you haven't come across him, then I highly recommend you check him out. He is his premise is kind of two-pronged. It's about letting go of our ego's need for gratification, so to speak, and getting too bogged down in the needs of the ego, and also being present in this moment, being in the now, which is the name of one of his books, The Power of Now. So being present in the moment, which helps you let go of the ego need to achieve something, whatever, in the future, or to grieve the past or whatever, and just be present. And that's where you find your peace, and that's where you find your happiness, in the present moment awareness. So yeah, I highly recommend you check him out, and we're going to explore his chart, look at a little bit of his life today. The reason I chose to do Eckhart's chart is that we've all been through a pretty tough time recently with the eclipses, especially the July 27th eclipse. That was a killer, especially for anybody with significant planets in Leo. So if you were like me and went through a massive crisis experience, then perhaps like me, you reverted to getting some sort of soul comfort. And I certainly spent about 3 days just listening to Eckhart Tolle YouTube clips over and over and over and all night long because I couldn't sleep. And it really calmed my soul. It really soothed my ego, helped me to deal with some ego issues that were rising up, and really helped me to focus on the present moment. And so if you're in a difficult situation, then it's something I highly recommend you pursue. Find your spiritual balance, find your spiritual harmony. So having just been through that experience myself, many other people may have gone through similar, I thought it'd be really, really interesting to check out Eckhart Tolle's astrology chart. And it is fascinating, so let's have a look right now. So here we have Eckhart's chart. As you'll see, there is no ascendant degree because we are not aware of his birth time. Being the celebrity that he is, I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to do a rectification on him unless I was to speak to him and get a bit of information from him to pinpoint some certain things. So we're going to go without a birth time, which will limit the things that we can talk about and discuss, but just the same, it's still going to be a fascinating journey. Eckhart has been called the most popular spiritual author in the United States, and he's actually sold 7 million copies of his 2 books, A New Earth and The Power of Now. And so he's one of the most influential spiritual leaders of our time. And what I first noticed when I looked at his chart was the shapes in his chart, and the most predominant one relating to this, spiritual leadership factor that he has, is the mystic rectangle, what we call a mystic rectangle. There's a couple of shapes in there. We'll look at them both. But the mystic rectangle is the one that leapt out to me. It is actually a really, really interesting shape. And you can see it sitting there between Jupiter, the Sun. There's a sextile from Jupiter to the Sun. There's a trine from the Sun to Uranus. And then there's another sextile from Uranus to Pluto and Saturn. Saturn, and then from a trine from Saturn to Jupiter, making this mystic rectangle. So 2 oppositions with 4 planets in total create the rectangle, and this is a very rare configuration. In fact, in all my readings, I think I've only come across maybe 2, possibly at a push 3 people that have got it. So if you've got this configuration, you're very special, you're very rare. Now, there is a lot of support in this from the trines that occur. That's in this case between Jupiter in its lordship of Sagittarius to Saturn, which is in debilitation in Leo actually, and then another trine from the Sun to Uranus. But because of these trines and sextile configurations, there's actually a tension existing in the oppositions. So there's an opposition from Jupiter to Uranus and an opposition from the Sun to Saturn. So two oppositions creating a cross, you'll see there, and then there's this rectangle shape on the outside. These are very special people. As I said, if you're born with a mystic rectangle, you're very special. You have this innate need to achieve your desires. I mean, everybody needs to achieve their desires, but these people are driven to achieve their desires. These people have a lot of talents. However, there can be inflexibility in sort of their outworking of their talents through the square shape, and it creates much softer people than would be seen with a grand cross in the chart. This is not a grand cross. That creates a very sort of hard, edgy type person. Not hard as in mean and cruel, but lots of sort of hard edges to them, or a bit more tension in who they are. They sort of with the grand cross, it's like everywhere they turn there's opposition, there's struggle, there's inflexibility. Like they have to really work hard to achieve in life because of this tension that seems to be always present with them. Whereas for these people, like Eckhart Tolle, with a mystic rectangle, there's a flow. Yes, there's opposition, but there's also a flow that's coming through the trines and coming through the sextiles. Now, Eckhart also has a little, down to the side, another little triangle. It's a bisextile triangle. This happens when we have two planets that are 120 degrees from one another, and then there's one planet that is 60 degrees and from the other two. And this indicates that talents are given to the person, but effort is required. They need to put in effort. It just doesn't naturally flow like a grand trine. They've got to actually make an effort. So the difference between a trine and a sextile, for those who don't know, a trine is just when things just fall into your lap and flow easily. A sextile is when opportunities present themselves to you in life, but you need to take the first step. You need to grab them. So you're going to get opportunities, but you've got to actually jump in and make the effort. It doesn't just sort of fall into your lap and then away you go. So this bisextile triangle down in the southern or the right lower half of his chart is between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, Saturn again, creating this square. So he's got talents, but he's going to have to put effort to achieve. Opportunities come, but he needs to grab them. And it's only in a small part of the horoscope, so it only gets turned on at certain times in our lives as planets transit and trigger that little section. But because Eckhart also has this mystic rectangle, that is going to get triggered frequently because it spreads out over a much larger portion of his chart. So when we have transits, there'll be lots of things going on in his life, in his soul and his mind, and playing out in third dimensional reality. So this is a good configuration, this little bisextile triangle, because it's sometimes more successful than the grand trine because it requires effort and the individual is less likely to be complacent in life. The planet at the apex, and in this case we're looking at Pluto, Saturn. It's a combination of the two. They're close enough to be both at the apex. It's most important as it's the culmination point. So what does Saturn represent in his chart? Maturity, responsibility, wisdom, learning. And then that's there with Pluto, which is about, a great deal of power, a great deal of transformation that is represented by Pluto. Pluto is the great transformer. Pluto is about death and rebirth experiences, and certainly Eckhart Tolle really had a death and rebirth experience in his life that was the culmination point for the rest of his career. Let me give you a little bit of background. He was depressed for much of his life until around the age 29, when he went through this inner crisis transformation experience one evening where he just didn't know if he wanted to live or die, and he describes it. I might quote it to you actually. I'll describe how he quotes the feeling of that experience when he had this life-changing epiphany. He says, "I couldn't live with myself any longer, and in this a question arose without an answer. Who is the I that cannot live with the self? Who is the self? What is the self? I felt drawn into a void. I didn't know at the time that what really happened was the mind-made self, with its heaviness, its problems, that lives between the unsatisfying past and the fearful future, just collapsed. It dissolved. The next morning I woke up and everything was so peaceful. The peace was there because there was no self, just a sense of presence or of beingness, just observing and watching. So this was this epiphany experience, this transformational experience that Eckhart went through at age 29. And out of this crisis, this one night of crisis that had been culminating over a lifetime of depression, he came out and spent years in what he describes himself as a state of deep bliss, wandering around London, sitting on park benches and just observing the world go by, observing people, and being in this state of peaceful oneness with the moment and bliss. His family thought he'd gone mad, but he was in a state of oneness with the world. And then he went on to actually teach people, to start writing, and he began working as a counsellor and a spiritual teacher. Students came to him. He'd been involved in academia before that, teaching English and languages and studying philosophy, etc. And so from that, after his epiphany experience and that period of time when he was in this deep state of bliss, he then went on to start teaching about his new philosophy, the insights that he gained from this transformational experience. I mean, if anybody went through a spiritual transformation, it's Eckhart Tolle. And this is seen, like I said, in the apex of this little bisextile triangle with Pluto and Saturn. There is structure and there is transformation. Saturn is structure, Pluto is transformation, and so it's highly likely that there may have been a transit to that point, to the Saturn-Pluto point at that time when he went through this transformation experience at age 29. If I was to do a rectification, that's something that we could definitely utilize in looking at, well, what was going on in his chart at that time and what might have been triggering this particular component, because this apex is so important. So that's the first thing that jumps out at me is this spirituality in the shapes in his horoscope. And obviously, just back to the bisextile triangle, there's Uranus there, sudden, something suddenly out of the blue happening, like all of a sudden I've been depressed for years, but then bang, I have this transformational experience in just one night that puts me in a whole different trajectory with my life. And of course, Neptune is also the planet that's involved in this bisextile triangle. What is Neptune? Divine spirituality. It's the blurring of the lines between the divine and the earthly realm in which we live. It's unconditional love. It is pure bliss. It is a state of pure bliss. So all of these elements played out, I believe, in this transformational experience that Eckhart had, that's now led him down the road of being a spiritual guru, basically. And while we're talking about spiritual gurus, let's look at where Jupiter is. Jupiter is known as Guru in Vedic astrology, and look where Jupiter is. It's in the sign of Sagittarius, in its own sign, so it's very, very powerful in its own sign. I'd love to know which house it is, but we don't know that. So all we know is that Jupiter is in Sagittarius, so Jupiter is powerful. What is Jupiter? Jupiter is the guru, the teacher, the wise one. It's divine knowledge. It is insight and abundance and expansion of the soul. The big word for Jupiter is expansion. Jupiter expands everything it touches. It grows everything it touches. And so, when we're looking at somebody who's a philosopher, well, they're obviously going to be very Jupiterian and expand the minds and hearts of people. And of course, this is making this beautiful Jupiter in Sagittarius is making a lovely sextile to the Sun. The Sun frequently represents career and our career in the chart. Now, without a 10th house, I can't tell you about the actual lord of his career component at the house of his chart, but we do know that Sun is very, very tied to career. And just out of interest, the sun is not in good dignity in the sign of Aquarius. So for anyone who's got planets that are not in good dignity, and his Saturn also not in good dignity, just know that just because that's the case does not mean you cannot be a success or cannot know peace or cannot have a divinely inspired life. It just means you may have some challenges and you may have some difficulties to overcome in life, as Eckhart did. He was born in Germany, unhappy. He had a very unhappy childhood with his parents fighting. They ended up separating. He felt alienated at school and at outs with other students. He noticed that there was a great fear and anxiety in post-war Germany at the time. He was born in 1948, so just after the end of the Second World War, and he could really feel that, and this is to quote him, that pain was the energy field of that country, Germany. So he was obviously a very sensitive child and picked up on the pain that was present after the end of the Second World War in Germany. Now, back to the sun in Aquarius. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted there. But the sun is not in good dignity, and yet he still has had a stellar career, an amazing career that's all been to do with alternative thinking. Really, like he's this spiritual guru, but a spiritual genius as well. The connection from the sun to Jupiter, and Aquarius is people who think in very unusual ways, in genius-like ways, in eccentric ways. And that's great. We need more people like that in the world. We really, really do. And you know, if you notice children getting bullied at school because they're a little bit different, oh, it's so sad, because these are the people that bring us new light, new information, new insights, people who are different to, you know, the status quo. And this is, anyone who's into astrology pretty much knows what it's like to be that odd, different person, because you think differently, and that's why you understand astrology, and that's why Aquarius is the sign that's most often connected with astrology, because it requires a scientific thought process, an alternative way of thinking in order to understand it. Let me tell you a little bit more about Aquarian people. They're usually humanitarians. They're interested in people, and they feel concerned for people, not so much as individuals, like, oh, you poor thing, let me help you. That's more Pisces. But it's much more about people as a group, people as a collective. And Eckhart Tolle is very big on speaking about the collective consciousness and the role of collective consciousness in our society, and how we are awakening as a collective group, and that's growing and increasing as we enter into Aquarian times. But that's a topic for another video one day. So there's concern for people as a group. They are of the belief that everyone is their friend, and usually they are. Everybody loves Aquarian people, and they see people through eyes of equality. You know, there's no one who's beautiful or ugly, and there's no one rich or poor. You know, there's no one, race, creed, color, whatever. It doesn't matter to an Aquarian person, because everyone is one. They are such a friendly sign, and we notice this with Eckhart Tolle. There is no barrier and no distinction with his communication to people who are, well educated and people who are not, and so on and so on. He is all about equality, and this comes through in his teachings as well, which are very much about the equality and the oneness of humanity. As I said, Aquarians have excellent minds. They're very clever at science, and they're especially interested in anything which can help people. They are often, now this is just a sideline, I'm not sure if Eckhart Tolle is into gadgets and inventions, but often Aquarian people are, just as a reference note for people who are Aquarius, Sun, Moon or Ascendant out there. But they can sometimes also be connected to political movements, but very much concerned with questions of freedom and justice for all. They're often not that emotional. They're more interested in exchanging ideas and helping each other, helping other people, helping humanity as a group. So the special, unique gift that Aquarian people bring to the world is their tolerance and understanding of other people. And without a doubt, this is Eckhart Tolle. They have the gift of being able to perceive what people really think and feel, no matter how they're dressed or what walk of life they come from. And people feel that, they are their friend. Like, I mean, if you listen to Eckhart's YouTube clips, you will know that you feel like he's talking directly to you, and that there is something warm and friendly and inviting about him. You feel that he is truly interested in humanity. And this is a gift that helps people make the best out of their own lives. And that's what Aquarians bring to the world. I mean, it is just beautiful. And so this is the nature of Eckhart's sun in Aquarius, and sun is career. He's bringing that. You can see it, can't you? He brings that to the world, this humanitarianism, this desire to help people awaken, desire for people to go deeper with spirituality and to, well, wake up. So what else is going on in his chart? Well, we can see, I don't know what house it is, but we can see that Neptune is over there in the sign of Libra. Neptune is spirituality. Neptune is unconditional love. It's divine inspiration, divinely inspired downloads and insights and psychic understandings. And it's in the sign of Libra, which, well, we know Libra is all about masculine and feminine. It's a dual sign. It rules. It's neither male nor female. It's both. And it's also connected to other people. So what is Eckhart Tolle doing? He is communicating love, divine love, inspiration, psychic understanding and insights, and faith to other people. It's a sign, Libra is the sign of relationships. It's connected to the 7th house, the sign of the other, the sign of other people, whereas the opposite sign, Aries, is about the self. Aries is about the self, Libra is about the other. So he's taking this Neptune in the sign of Libra to the world, this faith, this love, divine love and inspiration, divine download. And of course that's actually connecting to a part of that little B-sextile triangle that we talked about earlier. Now, one thing that's really, really interesting is that Eckhart Tolle has Mercury in Pisces. Now, this is our communication. This is really, really important. Let's talk about Mercury in Pisces. People who have Mercury in Pisces tend to be dreamy and imaginative. Now, we know Mercury is all about our communication style, our capacity to learn, our capacity to write, speak, communicate, talk, and publish things. It's anything that's to do with communication, videos, whatever, how we communicate and how we receive knowledge. And we've already touched on the fact that Eckhart felt that he was a little bit on the outer throughout school. And this is probably because of Mercury in Pisces. He was dreamy and imaginative. He may well have had trouble with detailed information because Pisces is much more connected to the big picture rather than detail. Information can come through otherworldly realms to people with Mercury in Pisces, and we know that that's exactly what happened for Eckhart Tolle. People with Mercury in Pisces can be channelers of otherworldly information. They have trouble with everyday activities and routines involved with presenting information because they don't follow the standard processes of reasoning. Their thinking is very abstract and very unusual. I mean, you look at any of the videos of Eckhart Tolle where he's asked a question and he will take his time thinking about his answer in a very dreamy way. And he will often present his answer in quite an abstract and unusual form. But it's so powerful because he's channeling information from divine realms. So this can mean brilliance, having Mercury in Pisces. Brilliance in some areas of life, particularly anything to do with creativity and inspiration. But there can be a struggle to work with the mundane and the ordinary in this instance. So people with Mercury in Pisces can overcompensate for this by becoming over-controlling of their environment just to cope. And maybe this is the cause of his depression. Maybe he was overcompensating just to cope with things because he'd been through so much difficulty at school and not fitting in, and his parents being, divorced and separated and living with his father in Spain. Things that he really, life that he really struggled with his early part of his life. So maybe this depression may have arisen out of the need to control. If we had house placements, we could look at possible causes of mental distress through house placements. It's a little bit hard when we don't have that. We have to assume, unfortunately. But people, again, with Mercury in Pisces, they can arrive at facts out of the blue by intuition. They go by intuition rather than rational mind. They tend not to be too thorough about research, because Pisces likes to feel the answer rather than to rationalize the answer. Although this would have been balanced out by the fact that his sun is in Aquarius, so there's a strong rationalization factor when you've got an Aquarian sun or an Aquarian mind. People with Mercury in Pisces, I'm just reading my dot points here, can be visionary and inspiring. They're good at making the mundane things in life sound quite magical, or the imaginative sound quite real. They're great spin doctors, actually, and make good marketing professionals, or have creative careers, or maybe musicians or writers, good lyricists. But they can't cope with the detailed analysis or practical administrative tasks like bookkeeping and that sort of thing. They need to, like for Eckhart, he would have needed to be involved in some sort of philosophy, some sort of pondering of ideas and coming up with ideas about faith, because Pisces rules faith. Pisces is connected to faith and divine love, as I said, the divine realms. But they are excellent communicators about spirituality and often come with psychic downloads or insights. Well, that's quite obvious in Eckhart's case. Prophetic ability and definite prophetic ability with Eckhart's way of thinking. He's definitely a messenger for this stepping into the age of Aquarius. And they are, as I said, really big picture thinkers. Now, how people with Mercury in Pisces learn is through creative self-exploration. That must be a part of the way that they learn. And if Eckhart grew up in fearful post-war Germany, and we all know traditional schooling was very rote learning and strict and what have you, and the opportunity for creative self-exploration may never have presented itself until his later years. So this must have been really, really difficult for somebody with such a spiritual bent or philosophical bent and mystical approach to life like Eckhart. If I had a child with Mercury in Pisces, I would be looking at something like a Steiner school, anything that's non-structured, any like student-led learning, plenty of opportunities for creative expression and exploration is what you would want if you had a child with Mercury in Pisces, because they just don't do it in the normal way. And believe me, as a strong Pisces person myself, you can feel so demoralized by not feeling like you don't fit into the strict, narrow box that is current schooling. So that's just my little jump on my little preacher bandbox there for a minute about children and learning and especially if they've got a differently wired brain. And we're all wired different for a reason and for a purpose. We bring so much rainbow of colour to human existence on planet Earth, and there should be room for everybody with all their different astrological wirings. So the other thing I wanted to have a look at is Eckhart's Atmakarika planet happens to be Mars in Leo, and this is similarly to Donald Trump, funnily enough, at the same degree as Regulus, the star Regulus, and this Donald Trump has this here. So, which is very, very unusual. But yeah, this Mars is his Atmakarika planet. This means this is the planet that represents his life journey and represents what his soul has come here to achieve, what he's all about in this lifetime. And so Mars is a very interesting one for a spiritual leader to have. What it's all about is being the warrior king. This is Mars. This is the archetype for Mars in Leo, the warrior king. He is a leader. Like, this is the nature of Leo. It's leadership, and Mars is the warrior archetype. So Eckhart Tolle is a solo man. Like, he is concerned with the collective, but he's an individual. This is the Leo, the Mars in Leo. He is an individual up in front of the crowds, with his teachings, solo man, not a big group of people trying to incite the masses or teach people or lead people. He is a solo king-like presenter of his ideas, of his insights, of his wisdom. And he's done this in a very warrior-like way. And I'm not talking about fighting his way to the top and stomping all over other people, but he's been courageous. Whether he intended to be courageous or not. But look at what happened to him when he went through his crisis period, and he spent years on a park bench, sleeping rough in London, or couch surfing and what have you. I mean, that takes courage to boldly walk away from your academic career and, climbing the career ladder and being someone in society. It takes a lot of courage and conviction. And that's the nature of Mars. They're very individual, as is Leo as a sign. So it was about, I'm doing this for me, and I'm not, I don't have to be responsible to anybody else. I am on this journey, this soul journey of being strong and courageous and true to myself, the warrior king. So whether he knows it or not, whether he resonates with that or not, this is his Atma Karaka, the planet, the traditional planet with the highest degree in his chart. Now, as I said, it's conjunct Regulus, and this indicates natural leaders in life with high positions of power. Now, when Mars is conjunct Regulus, it's going to be 10 times as powerful. So, natural leadership, high positions of power, somebody who is independent, an effective winner, and often connected to business owners, interestingly enough. Well, that's obviously the case with Donald Trump, but Eckhart Tolle has done it really unusually. He has had success. Yes, he's had, his books have been hugely successful. But we look at what's going on with this Regulus and Mars conjunction, and we can see the sun coming from Aquarius opposing it. So it's going to be something quirky. There's going to be something unusual, not just your traditional real estate mogul. He's going to, there's going to be some kind of leadership and powerful position that's a little bit unusual, eccentric, quirky, not what you expect. This is the nature of Aquarius. I mean, we love Aquarians, and they're about doing things differently, doing things uniquely, and doing things for the benefit of humanity. So here he is, this singular individual in a position of leadership, but there's a connection to the sun by opposition in Aquarius, which is large groups of people and the masses. So it's a fascinating chart for all these reasons, but we haven't yet looked at the moon, which is the emotional side of things, how we feel. And we look at Urquhart's moon, it's in the sign of Taurus. What does that tell us about who he is? Well, the moon in Taurus is a very solid sign to have the moon in. Taurus is a fixed sign and it's pretty stubborn, but it's actually a beautiful sign for the moon to be in. The moon is most happy in Taurus because it's exalted in Taurus. And so therefore Urquhart has one of the most stable emotional lives that you can have in a horoscope, without knowing house placement, of course. But according to his sign placement of the moon, he will have stable emotional reactions. He will have a healing influence on other people because of this aura of calm that he will give by his presence. This is the nature of moon in Taurus. So he has the capacity to comfort others and heal them simply by being around. Now, I don't know about you, but when I first opened the first page of A New Earth to read, it was the first book of his that I read, immediately by the time I had finished the first paragraph, I just felt like there was a load roll off my back and this peace descended upon me. And this is simply from reading his writings. So his very, very powerful, comforting, healing presence, even through his words, it's amazing. He has an ability to be very emotionally balanced and serene. Now, obviously, this is not the case when he was going through depression for the first period of his life before the sun matured at age 30 for him. But what does he now exude when he, in his speeches, in his talks? He exudes this balance and serenity. This is moon in Taurus. Now, Taurus is a fixed sign, as I said, so he's not someone who likes too much change and upheaval. Obviously, we went through a crisis period thanks to Pluto-Saturn there, but generally speaking, stability is what he prefers. Stability, security, familiarity. And the moon can reveal what our mother was like. As we know, the moon represents the mother, and so it's likely that he would have desired or seen his mother, whether she did do this or not. He would have seen his mother as someone who could make home life stable, serene and peaceful. I'd be interested to know if that was the case, because I understand his parents did fight a lot. But that is perhaps what he desired for his mother to be, this stabilizing influence in his life, whether she was or not. Now, just checking my notes. Sorry about this. Okay, people with the moon in Taurus, they tend to be very tolerant of the difficult aspects of other people, you know, and in a relationship, for example, they'd often stay much longer than anybody else would with somebody with the moon in Taurus, and sometimes that's actually a detrimental thing. So if you've got moon in Taurus, I'd encourage you to really, you know, honor yourself if you're in a bad situation where you're being exploited. Hopefully Eckhart Tolle's not in that kind of situation. I understand he's very happily married. And Taurus moon, you know, indicates a love of beautiful things, things that can stimulate the five senses, like, you know, luxurious fabrics, fine food, beautiful music, loving touch. Often they're good cooks. They have an aesthetically pleasing eye for detail, and they enjoy creativity. They like to collect things as it makes them feel safe and secure. Very slow to anger, but when they do, they react and they can go mad like the proverbial bull, but in general they are tranquil and serene with this beautiful calming energy about them. Now, I just read through my notes then, and one of the things that I mentioned was this, you know, liking the stimulation of the five senses. Eckhart Tolle has an interesting approach to life in that sort of the things of the body don't necessarily move him that much, which is very non-moon in Taurus. But part of his teaching is the transcendence of these things, you know, and not needing stuff to make us happy and to give us a good life. So this is a very Piscean frame of mind that he utilizes, where it's transcending the present earthly reality. So in this instance, his mercurial in Pisces mind is trumping, if you like, his moon in Taurus. And we can see by looking at his chart that the moon and Mercury connect by a sextile. So they're actually doing so in a harmonious way. There's a complementary energy there where the transcendence of the need for too much stuff, for too much extravagance and that sort of thing is very much tempered by this mercurial mind, knowing what that you don't need to have many things in order to be happy in life. So I'm sure he does appreciate all those things, that, you know, fine food and so on. But the mind is kind of working in a harmonious way here with the emotions. Emotions is moon, Mercury is mind. One thing I've never heard Eckhart speak about this, but the slow food movement is one actual movement that's really very much connected to Taurus, moon in Taurus, which is the appreciation of quality food rather than fast food, cheap food, nasty food. The slow food movement is about growing your food and knowing where it comes from and coming from ethical sources, taking time to cook, taking time to enjoy your food, to savor your meal, to make it an event, and be present in the moment with what you eat. And similarly, there are movements such as fast fashion, and there's the antidote to that, which is slow fashion, making your own clothes, appreciating the fabrics and getting good quality fabrics. And so the nature of this, which is a very sensory type experience, the slow movement, be it slow food, slow fashion, slow architecture, slow gardens, whatever, this slow movement is very much moon in Taurus kind of energy. And it's also actually connected to what Urquhart's message is all about, which is being present in the moment. That's where our happiness lies. Not by gobbling down a McDonald's cheeseburger and then running off to do whatever you've got to do. The idea is, no, we make this present moment special and enjoyable now, the power of being in the now. So we have a lovely meal, we sit down, we enjoy it, we communicate with our family, we eat together, and we appreciate fine quality food. This is this is a way of being present in the now, and this slow food movement encompasses that. So there is really there can be, this is not Eckhart speaking here about the slow food movement, it's me, but there is a connection between Moon in Taurus, that slow movement that's very tactile and about the five senses and appreciating the things in our life in this moment. And there's that beautiful harmonious connection to the ideology of Eckhart Tolle, which is that present moment awareness that brings deep sense of peace and joy and happiness. And that's the Mercury in Pisces, the divinely inspired wisdom. So I hope that makes sense. So that's another component that's very much about what he teaches. Now, we've talked about Mars in Regulus, and we've looked at the nature of Mercury, the nature of the Sun, the nature of the Moon in Taurus. He's also got his North Node there. I'd love to talk about North Node and destiny with Eckhart Tolle, but according to the practices that I use in my astrology, the North Node stays in a sign for 18 months at a time, roughly. And therefore, it's very generational. So if I was to talk about North Node in Taurus, it's just a generational thing. It's not very specific to Eckhart Tolle. We need to know house placement, and that's what gives it its uniqueness to an individual. So I'd love to talk about that, but I'm not going to. Similarly with Uranus in Gemini, Neptune in Libra, Pluto in Leo. All of those are generational planets. They are in those signs for extended periods of time that give no particular definition to an individual unless we know which house they fall in, and then we can work out how they're actually playing out in the life of the person. So that being the case, we have covered almost everything in his chart that we can talk about without knowing a birth time. Believe me, if we had a birth time, we could talk all day about this chart. But it is a beautiful chart, Eckhart Tolle's chart. It's very mystical, it's very spiritual, it's very brilliant and genius-like. It's full of gentleness and serenity and guru-like leadership qualities. So just on that, I noticed just then while I was speaking that there's a connection between a trine from Jupiter to Mars, the Atmakarika planet, which is about that leadership quality, that journey of the warrior king, connected to by trine to the guru planet Jupiter. That's all in the sign Sagittarius of faith, belief, philosophy, wanting to know, wanting to understand, wanting to expand the soul and the soul's journey and the soul's awareness. So this is a lovely connection between Mars as an Atmakarika planet and Jupiter, the guru planet in the sign of Sagittarius. So thanks for listening, and we might just leave this here. So thanks for joining me again as we look at well, not a celebrity, but a very important figure of our time, and we explore his chart and how he's come to be in the position that he's in today. So thanks again, and I look forward to joining you next time. If you'd like a reading with me, all you've got to do is head over to my page on the Astroladder website. I'll put the link in the comments below, and simply order a reading, and I'd love to walk the stars with you. Thank you.